out to be completely unreliable assholes.
And good day to you, Tim.
Welcome back to another episode of Are We Ever Going to Watch a Good Movie During This Quarantine?
You saying you didn't? Okay, well, I guess we'll get to it. I'm excited to hear your detailed thoughts and misgivings on this week's film, Cannibal Girls, Tim.
Yeah. Where are we? Who are we, Ryan?
Well, Tim, I'm glad you asked, because if you don't know, people listening, this is Dismembering Horror. It's the podcast show where myself, Ryan McDuffie, and
myself, Tim Aslin,
we dismember a horror film. Every week we talk about what worked for us, what did not work for us, and anything we found interesting or noteworthy. And I put the subtle emphasis on the we's and the us because these are just our very subjective opinions. We aim to be no final say. Tim and I are film fans and film makers, and we wanted to explore and catalog and digest all these horror movies that we want to see, that we've seen, but haven't seen for a long time, that we just want to talk about. Our favorite, the ones that you want us to talk about. And we just want to break it down afterwards. Dismember it, ha ha ha, as we call it here.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I said it briefly. We said it briefly. This week's film is from what year? 1973, from Canada. A canuxploitation, canuxploitation film called Cannibal Girls. I wonder. I feel so. Tim and I, we both remembered adding it to our hat, so we both wanted to see it. I mean, with a title like this, how could we not?
Yeah, after we watched, oh shit, what was it? What was that called? Shivers. We had found that there was this Ivan Reitman Cronenberg connection, and that's how I learned that Cannibal Girls existed. And so my assumption is that you had already put it in, and I went to put it in and realized it was already there.
Yeah.
And that's why we both think we both put it in.
Mm-hmm.
But I think
right.
that makes more sense, that I was like, oh shit, we need to put this in, and then it already was.
Either way, it just tickles me and gives me glee that the reaction was when we see a movie called Cannibal Girls, we go, oh shit, we got to put that in.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Well, I mean, hey, we'll get into it, but at least it lived up to the title, baseline.
Sure. Yeah.
That's where I come from. All right, well, to really get into it, unless there's something else you had, Tim, we start with the trailer.
No, let's do it.
All right, so here it is, the trailer for Cannibal Girls.
Once upon a time, there was a little country town where folks had a very strange diet. Strangers who stopped for lunch ended up staying for dinner.
Wilson, I just have. Yes! This just came in this morning.
Is it really fresh?
Mrs. Wilson, if it was any fresher, it would get up and tell you itself.
American International Pictures presents Cannibal Girls.
When the morning wakens,
They're young, beautiful, and very, very sexy. They love every man they meet. First to death, then for dinner.
What will you have for dinner, my lovelies? What will you have?
That voice, gotta love it. Cannibal Girls. I can't do it. Can you do it?
Wow. No.
Can't even try.
No.
Cannibal Girls. Yes. If you didn't hear it, Cannibal Girls. Cannibal Girls. Cannibal Girls.
That is like one of the
cannibals.
Most absurd trailers I've ever seen. What are we doing?
It feels like I can't imagine what else it would be. I mean, it seems
They
perfect.
spoil the end of the movie in that trailer.
Right, even all that more fitting. They didn't care back then.
They didn't give a fuck.
No, it's an exploitation movie. Get them in the theaters.
Wow.
All right, so we're in episode 91, Tim, talking about Cannibal Girls. I want to know, per our rating system, would you tell yourself, Tim Aslan, to avoid it, stream it, rent it, or buy Cannibal Girls?
Oh my God. I feel like I'm so vanilla. I'm just streaming everything.
I mean, it's like stream it. It's like I think it makes sense as if it would be our most given review, or rating.
Yeah. I feel kind of depressed by that.
Why?
Because I want to see stuff that's better than just okay.
Right, but I think having done almost 100 now of these, Tim, we have a good sense for kind of what our batting averages are here. Like,
well, yeah, I'm updating it right now since we both are streams.
Oh, our count total.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even say,
I'm not going to reveal it. I think we should reveal that at episode 100.
Okay, cool. But
so
no,
you could be literal 100%, percentages. No math.
Tim, I didn't even say I'm a stream it yet, but you said I did.
I thought that's what you meant.
No, I did. I'm just calling it out, like how you know things.
I thought you said you just stream it, and so that made me think you were saying you're a stream it.
Well, I am a stream it.
Hey now, look at that. It's like I read your mind because you said a thing that made me think you said a thing.
But I don't know if it's a flaw of a rating system, but a quirk and individuality, an individual aspect of it is I would like to specify within the stream its and avoid its and rents its and buys its what kind that is. So for me, this is it's not on the lower end stream it. It's not like it's I guess stream it. It's right. I was happy to fill in this little gap rather than I was fine avoiding it. It didn't totally. It was pretty far from living up to like what I would hope it could be my wildest expectations. Like when you see especially when you see the title and see that it stars Eugene. I've always said Levy, but Ivan Reitman said Levy in an interview I watched. So Eugene Levy, I was excited, to see he's in it. And of course he has his moments. Yeah, I don't know. So and it did deliver on the premise. I got the Cannibal Girls, in essence. But as a movie, it was just kind of like,
it's pretty whatever as a movie.
Yeah.
Like it meanders and just it's sort of like there's no real I just don't care. I was like, I don't care.
Yeah, and for a lot of reasons, but I think that were kind of interesting. Like it is kind of unique beast in how it was assembled and all that.
I agree with that for sure. That was interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. And what that is, we will get into later on. But next is our summary. Which will illuminate some aspects.
Okay.
We're talking about.
We're in Canada. Need you no more. Need you no more. Need I say more?
We're in cold, snowy Canada.
Cold, snowy Canada, and we're in a town called something. Fairview? Fairvale. Farnhamville. Shit, I was way off. Farnhamville. I knew a guy named Jason Farnham. Anyway, so this is way more interesting than the movie's story. So here we go. We're in Farnhamville, which is a small town in Ontario. And Farnhamville has a lore about a farmhouse in the woods where 3 beautiful young women live, and they entice and or seduce people, usually men, into their home, and then they kill and dismember them and eat them. So that's
Right.
Farnhamville's folklore.
Well, yeah, it's the folklore. How it plays out in the film itself, we do get like a cold open. That's just like a classic slasher opening of women getting killed. And then that context though of the story that you just described, like what's going on, we are given that as if it is just a local legend story. Like our main heroes, our couple, our characters, Cliff and Gloria. Cliff is Eugene Levy, Andrea Martin as Gloria. They get told the story Tim just told by, was it the motel, concierge?
Yes, yeah, exactly. It's the woman who runs the motel.
Yeah.
And, and then we flash back, like we watch that folklore story in real time as a I guess sort of a flash. It's sort of presented like a flashback, but it's just like, here, she's going to tell the story and we're going to watch the story.
And it's not just like there's these 3 women who lived here and they used to do this and that's it. It's not like this montage thing. It's this full on, like we start out with these guys who they lure in like in town doing their thing. It's like this whole little, I guess,
you forget halfway through, you forget that you're in a side story.
Oh, I did. I literally did.
And then it finishes and they flash back to Gloria and Clifford standing there being like, oh, wow, that's really interesting. You're like, oh, shit, wait. Right. Okay, cool. That was a story. All right. And then, of course, Clifford and Gloria end up going to the folklore house because now it's a restaurant.
Yeah.
And they become the victims of the craziness that's there. But twist, that's all a dream. But twist, it wasn't a dream. They end up there again.
Yeah. Or wasn't it a dream? Or do they just end up there again? Like the stuff about it is true.
Cliff. So here's my takeaway. My takeaway was, or my impression was, Cliff and Gloria they hear the story, they go back to their room, Gloria passes out, we see them go to the restaurant, which is this house in the woods. They meet the Reverend who's running the restaurant and the 3 Cannibal Girls. They find out that they're going to be killed and eaten. Gloria runs away and then wakes up from what she thinks was just a dream. A really real dream.
She falls asleep in that when she's given a pill by a doctor that she is hoped she's being rescued by.
That's right. So, when she wakes up, she goes, holy shit, that was so real. I guess it was all just a dream. And then Cliff says, well, I'm hungry. Let's go eat, essentially. Well, there's a whole cop thing, but don't worry about that. So they end up back at the restaurant in the middle of the woods. And then the Reverend is there again, and the Cannibal Girls are there again. And Cliff says something to the effect of like, I did what you asked me to. I brought her back. Which implies that the Reverend has this sort of hypnosis power over him. And then double twist, the Reverend turns that power onto Gloria, and Gloria kills Cliff. And then Gloria becomes a cannibal girl, and they all eat Cliff.
Right, which fits in just another part of the summary is we learn that, I don't know if it's a literal spell or what, but whether it's a literal spell or not only do they get put under the spell of his cannibalistic methods and ways, but the whole town is too. The butcher shop is in on it. Everyone's in on it.
everybody is sort of funneling people to that house to get chopped up and then redistributed into the town.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a fun play on like the idea of, you know, the town that's famous for whatever local legend or story or whatever it is, and like think, oh yeah, that's just some little part of our history, whatever, you know, but we are ourselves outside of that. No, they are just that.
Yeah. And they're
You know what I
maintaining it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, okay, yeah. I was going to start saying what I think works about it.
Well, we have a section dedicated to that, Tim. So
What?
do you want to just go ahead and do that?
Sure.
All right, here it is. Now we get to hear what worked about all that for Tim and me in our first section, What Worked.
What worked? What worked for you? What worked for you?
It worked like a charm, Smith.
What worked? What worked for you?
Well, Tim, what were you going to say worked for you?
The overall sort of like thematic-y sort of stuff, like the town and the like, you know, everybody's in on it and they all have a thirst for this, you know, meat and all of that. Like that, I think is cool. It's always just a cool concept, right? It's like the outsiders. It's the same thing with 10,000 Maniacs, the band. No, 2,000 Maniacs. You know, you've got the outsiders coming into this insular world that is out to get them. And I like that. It's always cool. And then so this element of like the town is in on it and they're perpetuating the lore as a dodge to the reality of that lore. That like weird, you know, insidious sort of manipulation is cool. I just think in general as a thing, it's cool. And you have like a spectrum of people who are doing it well and doing it bad, right? Or badly. Like
what do you mean?
The mechanics are they're just blunt objects about it. They're just chasing dudes and fucking killing them. Mm-hmm. Or like capturing them and then sending them off to the Cannibal Girls to be, you know, butchered and redistributed, I guess. Why wouldn't they just take them to the butcher in the first place? I don't know, but whatever. But then you have the motel lady who's doing a whole fucking thing. She's like, let me tell you the story. Let me get you all like enticed, but it's just a story. You should totally go to that restaurant. It's really delicious. It's like, that's really fucking like, ugh. And then you have like the cop who's kind of in the middle of it where he's like, fuck everybody, but also, all right, like let me get them to the restaurant.
He's got to keep the peace for how things are.
But
keep
he's
the
in on
status
it
quo.
too.
Yeah.
So I like the setup of all of that and the setup of the sort of the backstory and how we watched that, although I think a bit clunky, was still fun.
Yeah, the details were there that were fun. Like my favorite one, I mean, it was cool having like remind me exactly 2000 Maniacs of the not being able to make a phone call from the payphone to the outside of the town.
I love that shit, right?
But around that sequence, as I think one of my favorite little just touches moments in the movie where we see a super quick flash of like someone in the barber shop getting a shave, but instead like the razor goes up to their ear and cuts it off. It's just super quick. But it's just
and it was like,
oh, this
what's
is going on. Yeah.
Or
it's like,
it's
this
going
is
on all over town because that
Yeah.
person probably was an out-of-towner who stopped in to get a shave on their way to some, you know, business meeting like the other dudes. I love the guy who in the flashback or the tale is a dairy farmer.
Yeah.
Like
no. We learn later he's like he says he's in like in the dairy business to sound impressive. We learned later he was actually just an ice cream man.
Right. Like everybody, there's two things going on. This is actually pretty cool, right? There's the outsiders trying to present themselves as something they aren't so that they can get laid. And then there's the townspeople presenting themselves as something they aren't so that they can get fed, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, and it's cool. You mentioned, oh, well, what was the point of, why did they have the people meet? Why did the bodies have to go to the Cannibal Girls first? Well, Tim, it's because part of the whole town's in on it. There's an aspect of occult vampirism
Sure.
to it, where the girls and their esteemed
The Reverend
leader, the Reverend Alex St. John. So the town is not just in on eating people, but keeping the immortality of these young women going.
I totally forgot about that. That's right. There's this whole that immortality thing that it keeps you young. Yeah.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed those aspects too, as far as just like the details of you always go, okay, well, to pun intended, flesh it out a bit more. You said, okay, well, are they just like, is it just they just have an appetite for human flesh? Like, what kind of cannibalism are we talking about here? It's occult aspects to it, and I loved all that stuff in there of like whether at the end when they come out in their robes or toward the middle when they are all naked and sing like that weird hymn that they have. Within me, without me, say that prayer. Within me, without me, I drink this blood, which gives me life. And it's like this cross-dissolving montage of close-ups of eyes and their breasts and the blood and all that. All that is great. Anyway, how is shot aside? A little aside of how it was shot. And then the fact that it's like the Reverend, is a part of it. Those occult aspects were had a lot of fun with it. I'm trying to think if there's any other ones, I'm sure. But.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, that's kind of the overarching aspect of what's working. It's like these ideas are all working and like they're fun and there's campiness to it. I will say the undertones of humor are great because they're never actually like pushing on the joke. But there are jokes in it. Like Eugene Levy is funny.
Dude, he had some moments that I like cracked up at.
Exactly.
Like some one-liners, some quips.
Yeah, his quippiness was really great.
I guess it's relevant. I was kind of thinking it was a thing of note, but it's relevant for now. The idea, like when I read this as it's a horror comedy. It's directed by Ivan Reitman, but I don't think it's not a comedy. It is like a straight up exploitation horror film that just happens to have like a character who's funny.
Exactly.
Or like kind of like, dark comedy moments or whatever that, but those, do you remember? So like, I thought it was so funny where after Gloria, how she says whether their car isn't working at the beginning and she goes, well, maybe if we just speak nice to the car, say nice things to it, it'll get working. And Eugene Levy kind of like rolls his eyes and goes along with it. Come on, we believe in you, da, da, da. And then the car is working. Then right after they get it working from that, Eugene Levy goes, you should have been a mechanic.
It's just it's very dry.
I forget what the context was, but the other one I wrote down that cracked me up was when he said, I think oh no, I think it was when she woke up after, having maybe dreamt all this thing. He goes, I think you had too much pizza for breakfast.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that I think is more of a thing of note that it has that script structure to it.
Yeah. Well, it's no, I mean, it is
character, right? Like we're seeing actual character.
Here, it's a thing of note, but I think it is more, I'm going to contextualize it now as something that did and did not work for me. And the I am talking about is that this movie was entirely improvised dialogue-wise by the actor, however that collaboration worked out. My
impression was that they essentially improved and workshopped together until they felt like they had a basic script.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I mean,
then
how
they
much
shot that, and probably
Right.
had freedom and leeway within shooting to it. Wasn't super strict. You have to say this line here, but they had already worked it into a thing.
And because we're in what worked, though, there were moments in that were like because they did it that way, or maybe we're improvising on set too. There are those overlapping dialogue moments that I'm just a sucker for.
Yeah.
That just I just like that kind of style. And then like we already said, those moments for Eugene Levy being able to bring what he does to it.
Definitely.
And I wonder if it was improvised too, as far as what wardrobes they showed up with. Because Tim, man, what worked for me, I loved Cliff's knitted tie. Do you remember that? He had like a multicolored, like wide knitted tie.
He's also wearing it on like a brown pattern shirt too. So it's just like two things that do not look good together. They're just like clashing really hard. It's like, holy shit. And then on top of that, of course.
Oh, I was going to say her shirt.
Oh, I was going to say
too.
his fur coat.
Yeah, his coat, his facial hair.
I love one of my favorite moments in this entire movie. There's a couple. I love Gloria. Like, she's funny. She's so subtly funny.
Andrea Martin. Yeah.
And she went on, like, both of them went on to be comics, like, they're great. But she has a number of little subtle moments that are awesome, subtle character like nod moments, right? One of them is when they're at the table, the dinner table, and the Reverend he's already grabbed her ass once. And she kind of like, jolts and looks over her shoulder and she kind of goes, Cliff, and he's oblivious. And then they're at the table and the Reverend like reaches over her and starts rubbing her shoulders, and she starts like her facial expression of like getting kind of like stiff and looking at Cliff and like wide-eyed being like, Cliff, like,
Yeah.
Notice this, it's a little creepy. Her performance in those moments is so good, but my favorite moment is when they're in bed in the restaurant house, the farmhouse or whatever. And Cliff has his fucking sunglasses on still.
Right.
And he's like trying to canoodle with her. And she's sort of like, wah, 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 and she gives in and she's like, there's this pause and she looks at him. She's like, can you take off your glasses? And her delivery is just, she's super dry. She's just really, I don't know. There's something really funny to me about that demeanor of humor.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Well,
of course, it's so smart too. Like someone either by mistake or just to be funny. I mean, I'm assuming Eugene showed up and just left the sunglasses on because he thought that was funny. But because they worked this from an improv standpoint, they kept this moment in, because in an improv, I'd imagine Eugene was like, I'm going to be funny and go to bed with my sunglasses on. And she called him out on it. And then that makes it into the script. And like, that's just good shit. It's just funny and like natural and like weird. People act like that. Like, I love a good, just jokiness when you're with your significant other, just be a goof. I love all that stuff.
Well, I guess this is kind of in the same vein as far as observing the couple together and having fun with them. I think outside of anything having to do with the cannibalism, honestly, this may have been the best scene in the movie. It's the equivalent of like the couple scene in Poltergeist. That's the best scene in the movie, of them smoking on the bed.
Sure.
Eugene Levy playing the guitar for her.
So good.
Do you know I was going to say that, Tim? It's just like talking about where improvisation brings so much to it, with him putting his cigarette on the dangling guitar string.
Amazing.
Like, yeah, right? And just him, and just the song itself and the fact that she wanted him to sing it and her reaction to it. Yeah, I don't know what, man. It was just like, yes, I'm enjoying watching these people do this. It was just clicked in kind of a way that's hard to define.
Well, I would define it as the times I've seen that type of stuff is there's two sort of scenarios I've seen it. In a really well-rehearsed play where they've done it so many times that they're just sort of free to play around, and you are actually striving to find new moments within the play around and while maintaining the context of the actual play. But like I've seen it happen in that scenario, and I've also seen it happen in really, really good improv when like actual improv shows when two people are given a subject, but they themselves know each other so well that they're just really tuned in and they're able to play off of each other perfectly. And it's very rare because I hate to say it, but most improv shows I've ever been to are not good.
Yeah, it's an interesting line between when something adds versus detracts.
Yeah. But this was
Because,
just
like,
right in that lane, right? It's like very, very subtle push-pulls and like reversals within that scene, right? Like very subtle. Like even in like he's kind of trying to just go for it right at the top. He's trying to like kind of mount her, and she gets her legs like tangled under him where he has to actually stop what he's doing to like get her leg untangled so he can continue on. And then she lets him in a little bit, but then like, you know, they're playing this like weaving game where she like lets him in and then weaves away from him, and he tries to chase her, and then she does a diversion, and like it's really, really fucking well like woven together. And it ends, of course, with her passing out in quotations, because she definitely is not actually passed out.
Yeah.
You know, he like says, oh, he's like, Gloria, and she's like, yeah. He's like, well, fuck. What are we doing?
Right. So some of the cannibalism aspects, though, I think we should get into some of the more horror aspects. One of my favorite little details as far as seeing cannibalism presented different ways. And this is also to kind of come off of, I wanted to say earlier when we were talking about this being a comedy or not a comedy, I think it comes down for me what it is like they just think this stuff is fun. And that's what you can tell the filmmakers, like from the opening scene, like it's not trying to be a winky comedy, but you can tell they are into these, movies. They can get behind exploitation.
Yeah.
And so, but then you see where their sensibilities that, led to them being comedians working in comedy come in later. With just some of the touches, like I'd never seen in a cannibalism thing before where the meat that's being served, the human meat, like, yeah, they're still like tearing at it like animals and everything. It's still like uncooked and bloody and the sounds are there and everything. But they're fully sitting at a dinner table and it's part of a meal. It's like they have their side salad like on top of the meal. They'll like, pass the asparagus kind of thing. That cracked me up in kind of, it's still being an exploitation way, but just, I love that.
I gotta say, this is the second time this has happened, but it very much feels like Midsummer.
Yeah.
And it again,
Midsummer's every movie now, Jim.
It again makes me feel like Avi Arad, he's a fan of
Wait, what did you say?
Isn't that his name? Oh no, Ari Aster is the
Avi Arad?
Yeah, I don't know who that is. What's
Ari Aster's evil twin?
Yeah. Ari Aster, that's right? Ari Aster? Now,
yes.
What the fuck am I talking about?
I don't know.
I think it gives me the impression that he's just one of these guys who's, he's watched everything and it's just sort of in there. It's like, it's in him because he's consumed so much.
I always say that this
that may or may not be true, right?
Like last time I'll say, no, this is just kind of generic enough. Like,
I don't know. I think that, maybe it's just sort of a universal thing that you get to.
What I actually don't get what you mean by like it's like in Midsummer. When are they eating people at a dinner table?
In Midsummer?
Yeah.
When she's been crowned and she's sitting at the end of the table and on the table it's in her hallucination, like the like turkey or whatever the fuck's on the table, the long table, like half the time it literally looks like a human torso. Right? There's that whole ceremonial aspect of like we're eating the whatever. But then also just the aspect of the Gloria character, she feels similar, like her trajectory is similar in a way to Frances Pugh's, in that like she sort of has this turn where it's
Florence,
like,
dude.
Whatever. What did I say?
You just said, did you just say Frances?
Frances, yeah.
It's Florence.
Who cares? Those people.
Yeah. I just like what your brain comes up with instead.
Yeah. If I'm not looking at it, I'm just going to make it up. So the trajectory that Gloria kind of has is similar in that like she gets kind of hypnotized into this world and brought into it, and she becomes kind of the new one.
I just think like you have these ideas of you have cannibalism, ceremony, woman involved. Like the
because there's this whole subtext of sexual, Eugene. What's Eugene's character's name? So Cliff, the whole time he's kind of a dick.
Yeah.
And he's kind of just like, I'm just trying to kind of get laid. But then when she's like, do you really care about me? He's like, of course I do. It's the same kind of construct of like,
you're right.
The shitty boyfriend who's just kind of going along to like get what he wants. And he ends up ultimately dying at the hand of her because he's a dick. It's these very sort of standard universal tropes, I guess. But like, I don't know. I think that we've moved away from that one up until Midsommar came back around and kind of was like bringing it back. So whether or not it's actually directly influenced or it's just sort of in the zeitgeist, it's there. It's a story trope, and I think for me, I really like it because it's pointing at a thing that is true and a thing that bothers the fuck out of me in real life. Like, dudes thinking they're cool dudes being able to say and do whatever they want just to get laid, man. Like, fuck all of that. It's so gross. So anytime I see it, kind of the comeuppance of that, I'm like, yeah.
And Tim, he gets his comeuppance. And I see what you mean now, too, as far as some of the similarities, because it is so much fun. Also, I thought of this earlier when you were just talking about enjoying Andrea Martin's presence as Gloria and what she brings to it. The ending, it was so great of like, you have him betraying her and then her and then her and the the Cannibal Girls and their reverend kind of twisting it then on him, being like, hey, actually, no, now because you betrayed her, she's going to defend herself and now she's the one who's going to kill you. And just her kind of being, victimized in that way, then getting to enact the revenge, and that's the note that we end on, was fun. And that is just Midsommar again, you're right.
Yeah, and there's this sort of permission moment that I think is really compelling.
When the Reverend nods at her to go ahead and take the bite from him.
Yeah. Yeah, there's just something, I don't know, there's something sort of satisfying, I guess, about that.
Yeah.
Which, obviously, again, exists in Midsommar as well.
And it was actually cool. I mean, you I guess that's what we're doing here. Give him credit where credit is due. That was a good moment to not just have her already digging in. Oh, look at her. She's one of them now. This does a lot just to show that nod of, yes, you can be one of us now, or you can go ahead and eat it. I don't know, whatever that did.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's hard to say exactly what it did is why it's good.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't have a whole lot else.
I mean, I just got to give a shout out to Bunker.
I was thinking that's probably the only other thing I...
So, I mean,
it work? Yeah, I guess it worked. It's just so weird.
I mean, I love this whole household. We got the three beautiful, as the trailer said, 3 beautiful, sexy young cannibal girls. And it's just like so stupid, but I like love it too, where it's like, of course, the variety within it. It's not, of course they're going to be all white. It's Canadians too. So the real variety, how you get the mix of them is you have a blonde, a brunette, and a redhead. So it's like really, diverse.
It is the joke. Like they know that that's the joke. And I think that's what makes it funny and fun is that it's like it's satire, really. I mean, it's dark satire.
They're just doing it. And then so you got the Cannibal Girls, then the Reverend we've already talked about, but he has like the top hat is kind of like magician kind of in how he styles himself.
I think you're right. I'm pretty sure they got to pick their own costumes.
Like Demon Wind.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Developed their
By the
own
way,
characters.
I guess this is a thing of note. Never mind. I'll tell you later.
And then to round out their household, I mentioned the name earlier, what started all this, there's Bunker, who is the Igor equivalent, who's this is like their monster. Did they like did stuff to his face and
they muddied him up.
Yeah,
muddied and bloodied him up, kind of
this weird little like blooby deformed guy.
Yeah, he's kind of a hunchback. He's just I don't even know how to describe him. He's just sort of
he grunts around, he gummos it up, he goes around.
But he's
always there in the sidelines.
He's listed as him. He's played by himself.
That was the big thing of note I had. I mean, I had that under what worked.
That definitely works because it's just so, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it cracked me up at the end. After it like shows us their faces and gives her the names and Bunker as himself.
Yeah, it's funny. It's just so dumb, but they know it. I think that's what makes it okay. Is like it feels like they're really just playing around.
Yeah. And dumb isn't.
Would you call it?
Bad.
It's irreverent. Is that sort of the term you would use?
I wouldn't say that's the word, but I'd say it is a way to describe it. I mean, we're just it's kind of just getting at what are ways to explain like kind of exploitation and the different approaches to making something that's exploitation.
Yeah.
Which to contextualize, I thought that was funny. We had asked couple episodes before when we did 2000 Maniacs, it might have been afterwards, you were like, have we done an exploitation movie before? And I said, I'd call Shivers one, but hey, now we can say we've done Cannibal Girls.
Forevermore.
All right, let's keep it going then. Let's do what did not work.
Okay.
It's not ready yet.
Seems to work okay.
No, something important's missing.
What did not work?
So, like, while there was cool aspects to it being improvisatory, loosey-goosey, all that stuff, it also made it feel like it was too sectional. There was things felt like they were padded, which they did shoot stuff after the fact. It didn't feel like a whole thing. Like
there's there's no actual cohesive story.
Yeah, and the fact
like,
that when we were with
the thinnest of stories, I guess, is them showing up and dying.
Yeah, exactly. That's all that happens. Because when we were, as we said earlier, when we were in that flashback scene being told the story of the tale, literally forgetting that it was a flashback was not a good thing in this case.
No, and then also being told that maybe it's all a dream. I was like, oh God.
It just made it feel like, okay,
it's cheapened it.
Yeah, that's why I said padding. It just, the whole thing felt like just how are we expanding this to a feature? Well, it was kind of interesting because like it feels like it's structurally almost kind of like a 3-storied anthology film.
Yeah.
And I just kind of like wanted, there could have been a way to really embrace that and make us feel, okay, these are intentional segments, or just not do this approach that they're doing and make it more like, no, it is just a more traditional, cohesive, following this couple story.
You know, my sort of, I guess, if I were to make this movie, I would lean more in on the sort of Twilight Zone aspect of the singular mental what's the word? Devolution? What am I trying to say? Watching Gloria mentally devolve into insanity because of everything that's going on around her, that like I could get, if that is the consistent through line that we're tracking, all of this meandering and like it's a dream, it's not a dream, it's a story, it's not a story, all of that would actually coalesce into something. And the ending, I think, would be more impactful because you would get to this point where it's like she's just sort of ping-ponged around in her, you don't know if it's in her head, if it's not in her head or whatever, and she gets to this point of like, now it's time to make a decision.
Yeah.
And I think part of why I say that is what I would want to see is, again, it's similar to how Midsommar kind of operates, right?
Yeah.
It works. It's such a good construct, or a pleasing construct for me, to watch somebody just fall apart and not know what's real or not, and then take sort of that power back in the end and like make a choice.
I feel like this is emerging as maybe a big takeaway or lesson from watching all these horror films, Tim, because this is really similar to what you were saying last week about the mimic. When you have things that are confusing, that work because they're confusing or don't work because they're confusing, what that difference is. That was like a big thread we went down, and we've talked about it before, but it basically always comes down to sometimes you need that subjectivity to take us through the horror story. And yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, that's I think that's on point. You just said for this one, like, okay, given more time, maybe we would have realized that, as you just put it, is the thread in the movie, her perspective, Gloria's experience, and then give us that subjective perspective enough. It doesn't mean like it's to all be from her perspective, but just like as far as those aspects.
As you carry on, if you start to see the onion being peeled back and we realize that that's where we're heading, that we're sort of getting closer and closer to her state of mind.
Yeah.
And how good or bad it is.
Right.
That's exciting. That gets us, like, we're moving. There's actual, like, subtextual movement.
And we had the ending set up for it. Like,
the ending is great.
Yeah. It's just, imagine if we had been led there accordingly with what you had just said.
Well, it supports the ending, ultimately. If we realize that if we've gone on this journey with her and seen her sort of struggle within her own mind, and like her internal and external struggles coalesce into this moment of decision making, it's just foundational to the decision, right? Like we get more understanding and more catharsis out of seeing her make a decision. But without it, it's like, okay, it's just all sort of sitting on the surface, and I just think it's less compelling.
Yeah.
It's not bad. It's just, it could be so much deeper.
No, but I mean, it just makes it so, like, yeah, the effect for me when watching something without that kind of, like, hang your hat on major thread is there's, like, when I was watching back and I was watching the film back and, trying to remember it because, like, yeah, the effect of not having that thread is, like, when you have those moments where the Reverend is saying to Cliff, oh, no matter what you do, run out of here as fast as you can, escape. Do not look behind you. Do not look behind you. And I'm kind of was like, I forget how that paid off. Like, I just, you miss these kind of like little smaller scene to scene handoffs or threads when there isn't, when there aren't the overriding ones.
Yeah. 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 Because you don't have any sort of, home base to sort of come back to, where you like it's just context where you go, oh, that's where we're talking about, what we're getting at here.
Is it interesting because you can have can and do have films where the thread is that there is no thread. You can have like, on the far side of experimental films or whatever.
Totally.
Where like that is the thread in itself. I don't know. Yeah, just interesting for how every kind of like, I don't want to say like exception to the rule, but just how it all comes back to knowing the context of what you're doing. And that's your perspective on it. Yeah.
Right. I mean, my feeling is, in general, this is pretty general, but like, I don't know if I would call it a rule so much as just like a feeling. At the bare minimum, we want a reason to connect to either the person that we're following along, or a person we're following along, or a feeling that we're following along. And so, like, you can get super abstract when what we're connecting to is a feeling, right? But the feeling has to be purposeful, right? And it can be vague, but it can be purposefully vague.
Right.
And that in and of itself is a feeling that we can connect to. So, like, there's a whole spectrum of narrative or lack thereof, or just story elements or whatever. Like, you can do all sorts of different shit. But knowing kind of what track you're on, regardless of if it's specified or, well, not specified, but if it's specific or arbitrary, just knowing which one it is a track. But, like, we've experienced this a lot where we've watched a movie where we're like, they don't even know what fucking track they're on. Yeah. And that's when shit starts to really fall apart in a bad way.
Yep.
And so I think that, to me, like, through all of the, what we've been watching, like, that's a thing that keeps coming back, where we're like, we need that. We need the filmmaker to give us some guidance.
I mean, and you see that. What did you started off this episode with being like, I don't like these recent films that you've been doing. Yeah, Cannibal Girls suffered from this. The Mimic did, and then before that we had Lyle, and then Cherry Falls.
Yeah, and even before that was what, 2000 Maniacs?
Yes.
And as much as we did enjoy 2000 Maniacs for sure, it suffers a little bit.
Yeah, but I don't know. Just as far as,
you know what suffers is the one before that, which is Circle.
Yeah, no, but 2000 Maniacs, it has the through line of a perspective. Right. There is that emotional through line.
Yeah.
Like, through
it
the
knows
whole
what
thing.
it is for sure.
Well, and it has some kind of thread that I don't know.
No, you're right. I would say, so of, one out of the last 6 is not great.
Right. Wait, 1 out of the last 6 is not great?
I'm saying, well, it's not a good ratio.
Oh.
That's what's not great. That only 1 out of 6 films was even worthwhile.
You know what I thought could be fun, Tim, for episode 100? Is we each come up with a question for the other person about, like, something that is looking back on the films or whatever. What's the most this? Why do you think, come to it as a surprise for one another. I thought that could be fun. Anyway, I remembered.
Here's mine. What did the demon wind really smell like to you?
Kind of like, somewhere between rotting eggs and Nag Champa.
Wow.
and ghosts.
Zombie ghosts.
Okay, but Tim, we're on the Cannibal Girls here. Do you have anything else to not work for you that was specific? Or not specific? What else didn't work for you? Not that you have to think of another one. Yeah,
we kind of said it. It's like there's this sort of general disjointedness. It's like the mechanic stuff. I'm like, who cares?
Yeah.
It doesn't, like, I'm like, eh. There's such a fine line between, like, campy characterization and that is fun and dumb. And, like, in this, actually, you get both because, Gloria and Cliff are actually really right on. I'm into their campy characterization. They feel like people, but they're weird and they're charactery.
Yeah.
The mechanics, it's like, dude, who smeared grease on the guy's face? Like, that's not a thing. You know what I mean? Like, there's one mechanic and it's just like somebody just walked up and was like, here, you're a mechanic, you need some grease on your face. And there's like 3 finger smear. It's like, dude, that's just hacky shit. I hate stuff like that.
I know, because I feel like that's something that you would definitely notice or care about.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a continuity thing that pissed me off. Like the guy who has a cigar in the flashback folklore tale, like his cigar is just, it's like,
have you
at one
seen
point
the
it's 2
movie
inches
we're
long and then
watching,
it's 5 inches long. It's just like,
it's Cannibal Girls from 1973.
I know, but it's one of these movies that's like, it's self-made. Everybody's doing their part. Cigar guy, that's his prop. He knows. Fucking just keep your cigar the same length. That's on him. It's not the filmmaker. Normally I'd be like, come on, guys. Like, you're making a movie. Do it right. I'm saying that actor just didn't give a fuck.
Well, none of that...
That doesn't work for me.
None of that detracted. I'll put it again as far as the overall thing that didn't work, since he didn't use the word before. It's just the plotting of the film.
Yeah.
It made it feel like kind of more of a slog than I'd want a film called Cannibal Girls to be.
Yeah. I think actually my biggest problem is it's really not about the Cannibal Girls. You know what I mean? Like they are subservient characters to this story, and that kind of pisses me off. Like, give them characterization. Don't make them just these mindless sort of what would the word be? Like automatons? Like they're just sort of being led around by the Reverend, and that actually annoyed the shit out of me. That there's a puppet master that's a dude. Fuck that. It should be 3 fucking Cannibal Girls that are like super smart and super manipulative and like have personalities.
Well, yeah, you could have that fun moment where we see they're actually the one, who's been there longer than the Reverend, and he's their puppet. But no, you're right. Like that is a huge thing. Like, yeah, I'm saying we did get Cannibal Girls in essence, but you know why this wasn't higher for me than a okay stream it? I wanted more Cannibal Girls.
Definitely. I want 3 Cannibal Girls. I want a coven, right? Like, I want to see the 3 of them have an opinion. I want to see them kick the fucking ass out of like anybody who's a piece of shit. I want them to like, to kill dudes who are just sex-crazed douches.
Right. Well,
right?
you had that setup of the...
That seems so fun.
You had that setup of the story that was more than a setup. Whatever that aside flashback story was.
Right.
Like, that was leading up to, a movie that we just never got, as far as feeling like, oh, we're going to get more of the Cannibal Girls doing their thing. They were going to be fleshed out more. Haha.
Well, and then what I want is, once you establish that the 3 of them have like individual personalities, I want to see conflict within the 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Have them fucking fight over how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Or whether or not one of them actually likes one of the guys, or like is being... she's having her own, like their typical manipulation tactics are actually working backwards on her. Like some outsider comes in and he's even more insidious than they are, and they have to fucking struggle with that. Like, conflict.
It seems
not just, don't get eaten by the cannibals. Like more internal conflict.
But I'm not defending it. I'm just saying, you can see the decision that was made where I felt like in order for them to keep them to try to like actually be scary, it felt like, oh no, we have to keep them at a distance keep them more as monsters. But they're just like...
Sure, but even Frankenstein has a point of view.
Right,
well, I mean, Frankenstein's monster has a point of view.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good comparison as far as like...
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know, as far as monsters, but... Yeah, no, they're different. Like, as far as our, I guess that's the difference I'm talking about. Like, one you have where we'll be with the monsters and see the empathy with them, but then there's the other where it's just like No, rather than just having.
I see. Yeah, you want the pure, like danger of them. But I think you can have a little bit of both.
Right, like Leatherface.
Like, I want to see a little bit more of the like.
We like Leatherface. We see him being abused by his paw.
yeah. I mean, if you're going to put in that they have this puppet master guy, have them like have a scene where they're like, I'm kind of tired of being fucking told what to do by this dickhead.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to be controlled this whole time? And then, like, Sally's like, shut the fuck up, Mary.
They just kind of took care of that when he said, I did think it was funny when he's like, they were just all going along with, oh, we got to feed and drink our blood in order to live this way forever. And they're just like, yeah.
Yeah, like, I want one of them to be like, I'm tired.
But I would kind of go, why? I mean, I guess it's a different movie, but you go, why now?
It is. I'm just saying what
years?
I'd be more compelled by that because that's just a taste thing. I'm not saying this movie should have done that. I'm saying what I like, with this kind of construct, I just want more. I want some more meat on the bone, so to speak.
Right. Your taste, meat on the bone, all that good stuff. How about we move on? Things of note.
Sure.
All right. Things of note.
Things of note!
This should be interesting.
Some fun credits in addition to End Bunker as himself. We had the opening title card, Scary Pictures Presents. That's
that's right.
The main company or whatever.
Very nice.
And then yeah, we already talked about how it was improvised or whatever, but it was kind of interesting to see it in the official credits say it was something like dialogue developed by the cast.
That's right. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
And we already kind of talked about, is it a comedy? Is it not? No. Yeah, nothing more for that. I thought it was interesting. Oh, the official budget number I watched, I was like looking for interviews with Ivan Reitman about this film. And I found like one video interview with Studio Q on CBC. And it was just, he mentioned the budget number. It was made for $12,000.
Okay.
And he just had the idea of doing an improvisational feature film, and they were just looking to, exploit the exploitation films, the sort of being able to get on the map and have something by just making a horror film.
I have a question. This is a thing of note because I just don't know what to think about it. Why does Gloria... Why does she use a mace to kill Cliff? Like, what an odd weapon to pick up. And why was there a mace there?
I like to think
a medieval mace.
Because
what?
I like to think that that's how old maybe the Reverend is or something like that. They're vampires.
I was wondering if they were trying to make some sort of joke about like the ball and chain. Like,
I think you're thinking.
Maybe I'm thinking too hard. It just seems so odd. I mean, I like it, but I just was like, I don't know what to think of this.
No, yeah, I didn't think about that, but I like to think that they've been around for a long time. Collected these weapons. So yeah, there were extensive reshoots on the film. Learned that. This isn't so much. This is what happened right after this film. It was kind of the in-between between Cannibal Girls and Animal House as far as Reitman's career. I thought was kind of interesting. He went to school with the magician Doug Henning, who's great, and you should know him as a 70s icon. If you don't, look up Doug Henning. But something from that gave him the idea or whatever to do a show, like a theater show, a musical called Spellbound. And that went on to be his calling card that he then called up National Lampoons to kind of develop a first something with them that was like something else. But Spellbound ended up doing well. It was just fun to note these crossover collaborations because we had mentioned the Cronenberg connection. He said in his own words, I didn't get exactly what he meant, but he said Cronenberg wrote the book Spellbound. I don't know if that's a theater term or maybe that's Cronenberg wrote the script or something like that. He said Howard Shore, who's Cronenberg's frequent composer.
Was Spellbound
collaborator.
a musical?
Yeah.
So the book, if I know this right, which musicals is not my realm, but I believe that terminology means the book is the text of like the story.
Great.
And the other side of that would be the actual music.
Well, that's a big thing of note for me. So yeah,
I think that's right, but I'd have to ask my friend who's like in that world.
Howard Shore, who did the music for Lord of the Rings and many other things, got his start doing, working with Cronenberg. So he was on this. And then Paul Schaefer, who is the musical director, who's was the dude on Jay Leno, right?
Yeah.
As that musical director.
No, he was David Letterman.
David Letterman. Yeah. And then Spellbound ended up on Broadway. So
yeah,
it was fun learning how Cannibal Girls, they went from that to what made them more famous.
That's cool. Oh, man.
What else do you have?
No, nothing. I don't know. Canada.
So because we don't play the full trailer, when we play the trailer, usually I'm sure I cut out the part for our listeners that I did think was interesting, which is a promotional device that was used on this film. And I'll just read it from I said there's a great website I discovered through this. It's called canuxploitation.com. So all about Canadian exploitation films, which just makes you go, oh, whoa, that's a subgenre. I want to know more about that. So you can go to canuxploitation.com to learn about that. But so directly from there, the article talking about this movie, this lack of solid spectacle turned out to be, they were talking about how, surprisingly little gore maybe, or how much for you'd want in this movie. This lack of solid spectacle turned out to be a major problem for the picture when it was picked up for distribution by American International Pictures, home of Schlock King Roger Corman. Unsure of what to do with the bewildering and bizarre picture, a special warning buzzer gimmick was added, which was heavily advertised in the film's advertising campaign. In fact, the trick was borrowed from 1966's Chamber of Horrors. The gimmick worked like this. Before a scene of potentially squeamish fun, a buzzer would go off, and easily upset members of the audience would know to close their eyes until a doorbell sound indicated the surely indescribable horror was over.
That is so stupid.
But I don't know. I mean, you get it though. At this time, it's okay. Remember last week we were talking about how are people actually scared of the Conjuring movies when we're just not into it. We're ridiculous. What I was yelling at myself when editing the episode is the easy way to put it is we're just film snobs that takes a lot to buy into a movie,
Watch me over here shrug nonchalantly.
Yeah, exactly. But you got to think back then, this Cannibal Girls, people getting eaten, you're approaching it it's actually scary. These movies worked as exploitation. You do have, I'm sure, the dudes that were sitting there just getting a ball out of it. So I shouldn't specify, I'm sure whoever is that kind of a fan. But then people go in there who are legitimately terrified of and buying into the reality of Cannibal Girls as a legit film. So And then you think of that too with what it evolved from of the buzzer under the Tingler, the Vincent Price movies that these filmmakers grew up with.
That's cool.
It's actually got to remember, as we did say, this is a very subjective show, but just kind of give it that context of
totally.
People are scared of movies just because they,
and maybe that's just why they're going.
Yeah.
To be scared.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Anyway. All right. Shall we move on from Cannibal Girls?
I think we should.
All right. Closing the book on Cannibal Girls, and we'll get to if we have anything else we've been consuming to recommend dead to you, our listeners.
For once, I have 4, so I have to figure out which one I'm going to actually recommend dead.
Well, I'll start with mine, Tim, and let you decide. I watched The Hunger and want to recommend that.
Have I seen that?
with David Bowie. It's known as like the David Bowie vampire movie.
Oh, I have not seen it.
Well,
I know of it though.
It's cool. It's a little, if you get it pitched to you that way, it's a little like he's not in it very much at a certain point.
Oh, really?
He kind of leaves the movie pretty early on, but luckily it's still great. It's all great. Super, like the stylistic stuff that's going on in it. I loved it. Yeah, if you haven't seen it, it felt kind of on par with, not on par, felt similar to this movie story-wise as far as the lasting forever vampiric aspect, consuming others in order to do so. So check it out, The Hunger.
Cool. I don't know. So I'm going to just, I have a list now, so I'll just go through the list next, as we go on. So this week I'll say I rewatched maybe for the 1,000th time because it was a movie that was on like TBS every weekend of my childhood. Beastmaster.
I've been wanting to see that again. Like I've been wanting to watch remember I told you I watched Conan?
Yes.
I just want to watch more sword and sandal movies, adventures.
Here's why I'm recommending it. It actually has some pretty good horror moments in it. Like for a sand and sandals, sort of sword and sandals, whatever the term is. Sand and sandals. That's what it feels like. It's sand in your sandals. For that type of movie, there's some pretty cool scares. There's like this race of beings that like consume people.
Is this the one I remember watching as a kid, one of these movies a lot, where it's like they hold out these like blanket things?
They have wings and they wrap you up in them.
Okay, that's Beastmaster?
That's Beastmaster, dude. That scene,
I haven't seen it since I was a kid, yeah.
Having, watching it now and being able to kind of look at it from not a kid's point of view, there's some schlocky-ass costuming in it. Like, some of their masks just look like shit. But if just forget about that and imagine you're 12 watching this, it's really good.
And that's what I'm saying.
Cool.
Imagine if you can imagine you're 12 watching something, which is then you might actually get to be scared of Cannibal Girls and The Conjuring.
Yeah, there's some hilarious stuff in it. I think the lead guy is Mark Singer. It's just watch it. Nobody has ever spent more time in just underwear in a movie.
Was it, did you find it streaming free anywhere? How do you watch it?
Yeah, I think I was watching it on Amazon Prime.
Cool. Great.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch it now.
It's fun. It's ridiculous. But it also has our friend from Tourist Trap in it, Tanya Roberts.
Oh, great.
The woman who we were like, wow, she is very beautiful. She's the lead in it. Lead woman.
Have me sold. I'll revisit it after not having watched it for 23 years.
Beware, there is an incredibly rapey scene in it that just makes you go, ugh. Like when Beastmaster, whose name is like, I don't know, it's something dumb. It's like Dorf or something like that. That's not exactly right, but it's close. Like when he meets her, they definitely like pounce on each other and like have a little weird like roll through the hay kind of moment. And it's a little like, he's like just very rigid and like pressing his hips against her very aggressively. So,
well, heads up, everyone.
Exactly.
But Tim,
other than that, it's absurd.
I want to know.
It
Tim.
also has one of our fan favorites, Rip Torn, as the bad guy.
Great. Awesome.
Get into it.
I'm already sold. What I want to know now, Tim, though, is what next week's episode is going to be about.
Oh. It's my turn, yeah?
Yes.
Woohoo! Here we go. It is this one. The Girl Next Door.
What year?
2007. Isn't that just the movie with Alicia Cuthbert?
That's why I said what year. Because there's a horror movie that's called The Girl Next Door.
Yeah, but I want to watch the Alicia Cuthbert one.
I saw that in
huge crush on her.
I saw that in theaters when it came out just because of the poster, I remember, yeah.
She and I have the same birthday.
Cool. Harrison and Ford and I have the same birthday.
Wow, Mandy Patinkin and I have the same birthday.
All right, great. So next week we'll be here talking about From 2007 without Alicia Cuthbert. Sorry, The Girl Next Door.
Cool.
And until then, our big ask is if you enjoyed this, why not tell a friend? Word of mouth is what most helps us out. Do it.
Do it.
Do it. All right, great. And you can find us at dismemberinghorror.com if you haven't already. We got our things linked there.
Yep.
Anyway, I think that's all we got, Tim, unless you got anything else.
That's it.
Great.
I got
Thank
6% on my computer. That's what I got. Oh, 5%.
All right, everyone. Then thanks for being here. In closing, yeah, like I just said, thank you so much for listening.
Yep, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.